All right, we are live. Premier broadcast on that podcast. Okay. We're live on Facebook and YouTube. A premium account is required for X, which we will handle later. But we'll get that link. So, not a big deal.
Thanks, Elon.
Okay. Wait for everyone to join in here. Copy paste this.
Oop, got people filtering.
There we go. We'll let the crowd build up a little bit. Okay, give it another minute or so. Chat up there. Let more people follow in. How's it going, everyone? We're just waiting for a couple more people to join in, and then we'll get started. Gonna give it another minute or so. You know, not everyone's on time like you fine folks. But we appreciate everyone showing up. All right, you ready to get started?
After you, my man.
All right, well, welcome on, everybody. Welcome in, everybody. We'll keep letting people join in, but we'll get started here. Post-Gazette Sports Now YouTube channel, Facebook. We're supposed to go live on X. Looks like we're having technical difficulties there, but we'll battle through it, just like the Pirates have battled through some adversity as of late. As we get started, we got to talk about our show's presenting sponsor, which is the North Shore Tavern. If you love baseball, you'll love the North Shore Tavern. They are interior Pirates wall to wall. There are appetizers, entrees, cocktails, and of course, steak and seafood on a sizzling lava stone. Open every day. The North Shore Tavern is right across the street from PNC Park and is Pittsburgh's home for steak on a stone. He's Andrew Destin. I'm Noah Hiles. We are coming to you live from PNC Park, where the Pirates took 2 of 3 from the Cardinals this week, 4 of 6 in the homestand, if you want to include their 2 out of 3 wins against the Philadelphia Phillies. Andrew, 5-0 win today. Martin Perez throws 6 shutout frames. Rowdy Tellez with a bomb, another big hit. Connor Joe with 2 RBIs as well. Just your overall thoughts on today's victory.
Yeah, I feel the biggest takeaway has got to be Martin Perez, right? I mean, this is a guy who Derek Shelton was never going to say it publicly. Martin Perez, nobody was going to say it publicly, but to some degree, this guy was pitching for a spot in the rotation, right? Just given the way the body of work that he's put forth since coming off the injured list, there's no other way to put it. It's not been good. He has not been good. The ERA in that stretch had been over 8. To go out there and pitch 6 scoreless, to battle through 5 walks, to keep this Cardinals lineup at bay the same way that he did in really the only other good start he had the last couple of months against the Cardinals when he went 7 1/3 and was really excellent back on July 4th. This was really important for Martin Perez, just all things considered. This is a rotation that there aren't many spots up for grabs, and especially so when Jared Jones inevitably comes off the injured list in a couple of weeks, whenever that ends up being. So that was really impressive from Perez, regardless of that ends up being impactful for his future here, elsewhere. I'm not here to speculate that, more so to just say that was really important for Martin Perez and, in this case, for the Pirates.
And aside from Martin Perez, I think the other hero of the day was Rowdy Tellez, a guy who wasn't even supposed to play today.
Nope.
Andrew, Brian Reynolds was originally scheduled to play, as he's been every single day. He was scratched due to a back issue. Shelton explained that kind of tightened up on him when he got out of the car. First start that Reynolds has missed all season long, so he was scratched. He was replaced in the lineup. They with Tellez, they moved Connor Joe, who was originally supposed to play first base due to them facing a left-handed pitcher. They moved Joe out to right field. They put Tellez in the lineup. And what does he do, Andrew? He comes in and drives in the first run of the game with a single, and then follows it up the next at bat with a home run that went 447 feet straight into the Allegheny River. Big game from him. I feel like we haven't seen Rowdy as successful at the plate as we saw him, I guess, pre-All-Star break. I feel like this was his best game since the All-Star break. Not to say he's been bad. He had the one game with the 3 sacrifice flies, but this was a game where he really, really had a big impact. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. And I think the biggest takeaway there is, like you said, the left-handed pitching, right? I mean, this is a guy who entered this game with 4 hits all year against lefties, 11 strikeouts and 28 at-bats. You look at the career, right? This is a guy who does not hit lefties well. That's why they platoon him with Connor Joe. That's why this is a guy who wasn't going to command a bigger contract on the market, was because, frankly, he's an option just against righties.
Yeah.
So I'm not by any means suggesting this is a guy who's going to be in the lineup on a daily basis against lefties. Brought it up jokingly to Derek Shelton, and he took it as the joke that it kind of is.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think what we're looking at there is this was a guy coming through in the clutch, coming through with some big power. In a series that really didn't have many runs, right? I mean, this was a devoid of offensive series. And certainly, if you're a Pirates fan, you probably hang your head and think, wow, this was a sweep that was begging to be a sweep. But yeah, not the case.
Just the third time in 9 games these two teams have played, and it wasn't decided by 1 run. I believe it's also the third time in 9 games the Pirates scored more than 3 runs against these pesky Redbirds, as they would like to refer to them. Andrew, let's take a look at the series, as you kind of did already, where there wasn't a lot of offense. There was some really good pitching. What's one player that we feel like we should highlight looking over these past 3 days?
Ooh, it's a tough one, man. I think you got to start with Mitch Keller. I think that's a spot where I go because, listen, we're going to talk about Paul Skeens. That's inevitable. But with Mitch Keller, I think it's fair to say that coming out of the All-Star break, there were some concerns.
Yes.
Right? This is a guy who in Chicago only pitched 3 innings, right? Got lifted after 57 pitches. The velocity was down. His start was later than some people anticipated coming out of the All-Star break. He wasn't one of the 3 guys who started against the Phillies. So there were a lot of questions about, where's Mitch Keller at, right? And he eased all of those questions, I'd think. I mean, he pitched tremendously. That's a guy who I'd certainly like to highlight, just the way that he pitched in that first game against the Cardinals.
I'll follow with the guy who pitched the day after Mitch Keller, and that's Paul Skeens. And it's funny that there was a big fuss on social media when the Pirates announced their 3 starters for Yinzer-Palooza weekend, with them being Martin Perez, Luis Ortiz, and Marco Gonzalez. That, they're punting, they're not going to win. Why not pitch Paul Skeens? Why not pitch Mitch Keller? Why give them extra rest? This is why you do that.
Yeah.
To be clear. And you could debate, you could say these guys are good enough where they could have done this against. Maybe. We don't know. But what we do know is Shelton went out of his way to get these guys extra days of rest. And how did they do? Mitch, 7 strong, gets a win. A big win that they needed over the St. Louis Cardinals. Or he didn't get the win, but he led them to a victory. And Paul Skeens, who, ironically enough, was the losing pitcher yesterday, throws 8 1/3, just really almost near flawless baseball. I mean, he was the losing pitcher, but those 2 were spectacular. That's what you look for from pitchers like that, from all-star pitchers like that in must-win games in your home ballpark in the second half of the season against a division rival. So those would be 2 guys that I would highlight immediately. I think another guy to highlight in this homestand, especially this series, Aroldis Chapman has been throwing the ball really well coming out of the break. I don't know, Andrew. I mean, what do you think? Do you think that this is a guy that still brings worries when he's out there of inconsistency, or have we seen enough from Aroldis to forget about the ugly May?
I think it's just the ongoing dichotomy with this guy is that it's going to be polarizing, right? I mean, even today, issuing a walk, getting behind guys, throwing pitches that Joey Bart has to leap out of his crouch to catch. Like, this is just who he is, right? So to some degree, you just kind of take with the good, you take with the bad. But to your point, no, this has been much better. This is not the Aroldis Chapman of May. This is the guy who more closely is resembling the one who is a borderline Hall of Famer, a guy who's been one of the better closers in baseball for the last decade and change. He's not the closer anymore, right? They got David Bednar. That's not what we're here to discuss. What we are here to discuss is that this is a guy who's been a much more reliable option at that back end. You pair him with what they're getting out of Colin Holderman, what they've gotten the last couple of months out of David Bednar. Chapman's been excellent. I really can't criticize anything that he's done on the mound lately.
If you guys have any questions, you can comment them below. We will try to get to them if we can. I think we'll be wrapping up here in maybe like 5 to 10 minutes, depending on where the conversation goes. But Andrew, we talked about the Cardinals. We talked a little bit about Yinzer-Palooza. I think it's worth pointing out the crowds
Yeah.
here as well. 118,000 plus sold tickets for these 6 home games. You can point out, yes, there's Picklesburg. There were a lot of Philly fans in town this weekend. No one's denying that. Skeens has that effect with 32,000 here last night. But it does seem like the excitement is being felt around the ballpark. As someone who went to a lot of Pirate games as a fan over the last years, it seems different here. You covered the team last year. Do you think that this excitement impacts either A, the players on the field, or B, the front office and what they might be doing over the next week, or both?
I would say certainly more so on the players.
Mhm.
I would say that the front office part, I could go a lot of ways with that answer, but the first point that I'll make is that the average attendance, when you relate it this year versus last season, it's up over 1,000 people, over 1,000 patrons. So whether that's directly into the bank accounts, whether that's directly just into ticket sales, concessions, etc., like that's only a good development for the Pirates' sake. How exactly that manifests into anything on the front office side remains to be seen. But I think the greater point there is that this is a team that is worth investing in, right? This is one that you look at and say, okay, the NL wildcard picture, what has taken place? The Giants have certainly fallen out of it. You look at it, okay, the Braves are in an excellent spot. They're going to take one of the spots. The Cardinals, which to the point of why Skeens and Keller pitched against them, that's your division rival. That's one of the teams that you're looking to leapfrog. I look at it as, hey, there's a reason these crowds are so large. There's a reason behind the excitement. Because this is a team worth looking into. It's one worth investing into. I'm not sure to what degree that's going to be. Should Pirates fans be eager about the idea of the Pirates getting, the biggest biggest name on the trade market? Probably not. But what you can get excited about is that I don't think this is going to be a team that you're going to see significant subtractions from. It's going to be one that they add to in a meaningful way. And if it's player for player, I can't imagine it's going to be anything that doesn't make the club better.
Right. And that's what I was going to follow up with. Will the major league roster look different at this time next week? I would assume so.
Yeah.
And will they potentially be giving away a player that has helped them win games this year? I think there's a chance, but it's not going to be someone who would be a huge difference maker, I guess you could say. Like I if I had to predict, and again, this is just speculation, everything, I think you look at guys like there's conversation going around that they might be like true sellers at the deadline still, or buy and sell. I don't think Aroldis Chapman's going anywhere. Do you?
No, not anymore.
No.
For me, it was a point if they were 5 or 6 games under 500 going into the deadline, just from conversations, he would probably be a guy who's on the way out. This team that's looking to win.
Yes.
I don't think
I don't think Colin Holderman is going anywhere. I don't think David Bednar is going anywhere. I think if they were to move someone, it would be maybe a guy like Marco Gonzalez. Would make sense. A guy who wants to start. You're going to have Bailey Falter back. I mean, that would give you 7 starting pitchers on this roster right now. That's a lot of starting pitchers. So maybe Marco would make sense. Martin Perez, maybe a guy like Quinn Priester could serve as an intriguing young guy that you could pair with prospects for a trade for a player with multiple years of control, because he has a couple years of control. So those would be guys that I'm looking at. We'll continue the trade talk a little bit, Andrew, because we kind of organically got into it.
It's inevitable. It's July. Come on.
Give me 3 names that you would go after if you're GM BC, knowing what we know as far as players that are availability, players that seem to be within reasonable reach of this team. 3 guys that if you're the Pirates GM, you would say that's worth giving up something for.
Wow, putting me on the spot, man.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it a lot. Okay.
We can come up with 3 together. You can do one. You do one. I'll do one, and we can.
You're good. I got my GM hat.
Okay,
I got my 3.
Right,
I said I had to banter for a little bit.
Okay,
to
all
pick them
right,
up.
fair enough.
Okay, first name I'll say. I think we're in agreement on this one. Tommy Pham would be one that I look at a lot.
Tommy Pham makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think expiring contract, veteran. You get him in here. Yes, there's clubhouse concerns. I've raised those, but it's only for a few months.
Yep.
This isn't a guy who's going to be your franchise cornerstone. If there's ever a clubhouse, you and I are in there all the time. If there's ever a clubhouse that could absorb a guy like this, I think this is one that could do it.
And I think he might just be happy to get the heck out of the south side of Chicago,
Very
considering
true.
how bad of a team the White Sox are. And Pham's familiar with this type of thing. He's been a late deadline addition numerous times in his career, and I feel like things have played out pretty well for him in that role. It's staying at a place for more than a couple of months is where maybe some tensions rise. But I think that he'd be able to keep himself in check.
Agreed.
Right? So Tommy Pham's number one. Who else?
I'd go Scott Alexander with the A's.
Ooh, okay.
I think, unfortunately for the Pirates, Ryan Baracchi is rehabbing. He's getting closer. He's been rehabbing for a little while. There are certainly some concerns on my end about, is this a guy who's going to be able to contribute, realistically, here in the second half? He was such a valuable left-hander for them. I think they need to go out and get another lefty. I think they've gotten solid contributions from Fleming and Chapman, but Fleming in his role, it's not really a true sixth or seventh inning option.
Right.
It's more of a bulk guy. It's a guy who likes an opener
and they have those.
They have that.
They have that. They have a lot of that right now, and they're going to even have more whenever other starters return. So
I think you got to get a lefty, a lefty reliever. And I'm just throwing a name out there just to throw one, but you could go out and get a lot of different guys.
Yep.
There are many of those kinds of options. And then my final wish list candidate, which this is me being really aggressive, is I would say the Toronto Blue Jays. Go out and get Danny Jansen.
Ooh.
Go get a catcher. As much as Joey Bart has been impressive, and I like Joey Bart's game a lot, I think you have to pair him with a better catcher than Yasmani Grandal. I think you have to upgrade there. Bart, as much as he's been solid, I don't know if you trust him as your everyday guy. And even so, I think you need to supplement it with a better second option, no matter who that is. It doesn't have to be as big of a name as Jansen, but I think you got to get a catcher.
There's never a bad route to just adding more offense, in that scenario where – sure, Bart being the backup is what they acquired him to be when they first brought him in. So I don't hate any of those moves. I'll throw a couple more out. One would be Ahmed Rosario, a guy that I think makes a lot of sense. The Tampa Bay Rays are just always going to be a team that is at least semi-open for business at the deadline as far as being sellers are concerned. Rosario doesn't fill a need for power for this team, but I think what he does give is defensive versatility and above average offense. He's a guy that I think can probably fill Triolo's role as a reserve player and someone you could also start in center field and also when Nick needs a day off, play him at second base. When O'Neill needs a day off, play him at shortstop. I don't know if he can play third. That might cause an issue. Maybe Gonzalez plays at third when Key needs a day off. But Rosario is a guy that I think could give you some depth there. And just to throw out another outfielder name, I think Jesse Winker makes a lot of sense. I really like what Nick Gonzalez brings to this Pirates lineup. I don't think Nick Gonzalez should be a cleanup hitter for this team. And that's nothing against Nick. It's just I don't think a guy with, what does he have, 5 home runs, 6 home runs, somewhere around there, he should be probably lower in the order. And if that's the case, I think that your batting order is a lot better if Nick Gonzalez is somewhere 6th through 9th as opposed to 4th. It gives you a more well-rounded order. You bring in a guy like Winker who is consistently hitting 3rd or 4th for the Nationals, above league average OPS plus 11 or 10 plus home runs, I believe 11 or 12. Again, numbers that aren't going to blow you away, but it's just adding depth. I think a lot of people believe that they need to add a superstar, and there's not really a great superstar to add at this deadline, especially within this club's price range and what they're willing to give up as prospects are concerned. I think their view is they have a superstar with O'Neill Cruz. They think he's going to play like a superstar. They have an elite hitter in Brian Reynolds. Those are going to be their 2 best offensive players, and it's about surrounding them with a better cast of supplementary players. They need guys who can pick up the slack, not for a whole series, but for one game. The one game where O'Neill goes 0 for 4, Reynolds goes 0 for 4. They need the guys who can step up and have those types of performances that we've seen Andrew McCutchen do, Nick Gonzalez do, who don't have the most amazing numbers. Rowdy Tellez, another one, where normally, your superstars are going to do the most of your work, but you need other people to fill in the gaps, and they haven't got that from Brian Hayes, Jack Sawinski, Michael A. Taylor. So if you can get that from players you can bring in, that makes the club a lot better. Andrew, I think we're going to wrap up here soon. Before we conclude, let's talk about the upcoming road trip, specifically 3 huge games against the Arizona Diamondbacks, the defending National League champions. Got the pitching matchups right here. Luis Ortiz will pitch Friday, Marco Gonzalez Saturday, Mitch Keller Sunday. In Arizona, no no probables here from Arizona so far. But still, I mean, you look at that. I mean, those you feel like you're going to have a pretty big advantage on the hill in at least 2 of those 3 games. What are you looking to see from the Pirates as they head out west?
It's going to be tough. This Diamondbacks team is one of the best teams in baseball since the beginning of June.
Yep.
They're
playing really good baseball.
I think it's the 3rd best record in baseball since June 1st. They've been excellent. So I look at it as, how does that match up against the Diamondbacks team that has been, now meeting the expectations that were placed upon it after going to the World Series last year?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they really struggled out of the gate. So I'm curious to see how do the Pirates compare in another litmus test. I mean, I think this is maybe too much of a 10,000-foot view, but looking at these last 2 series where you played the Phillies, you played the Cardinals, now you go against the Diamondbacks, following that up with the Astros. You couldn't have asked for a better 4 series leading into the deadline because they've made it abundantly clear to management that this is a team that's worth investing in.
They're proving that they are not, all smoke and mirrors.
100%.
Yes.
So I view this as just another litmus test. Go out there against the Diamondbacks team that's been one of the best ones in baseball lately. In terms of on-field stuff, I mean, hey, listen, it's a good lineup with some guys like Marte and Walker, Corbin Carroll finding his bearings a little bit more so. But more so, it's just, hey, how does this pitching stack up against another solid baseball team?
And the reality is, if you're going to be a playoff team, you need to beat other good baseball teams. 100%. And you need to do it consistently. They let a lot of games slide against not-so-great teams in the first half. Mm-hmm. And in order to make up for that, they're going to have to win tougher games against tougher opponents in these final 60 remaining contests. So this is part of it. And this is what they should want. They gained ground on the St. Louis Cardinals over the last 3 days. Mm-hmm. They have the same opportunity to do so against the Diamondbacks, who they'll play 6 times in the next 10 days. The next 3 will be in Arizona, but then they get them 3 more here at home. Very big baseball games, and that's all you can ask for right now if you're the Pirates. When you're looking back, a couple months ago, this team was 5 games under 500. No one could hit a baseball. It's a lot different now. They have their path right in front of them. They just got to go out and do it. So he's Andrew Destin. I'm Noah Hiles. As always, this show is brought to you by the North Shore Tavern. Head on down there. Pittsburgh's home for steak on a stone. Check out all of our work at post-gazette.com and keep tuning into the Post-Gazette Sports Now YouTube channel and podcast network for all of your Pittsburgh sports content from the Post-Gazette Sports staff. Talk to you later.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.